This video, we'll talk about Durkheim's theory of suicide, and we'll try to wrap it up as quickly as possible. So, Emile Durkheim formulated a theory of suicide that sought to understand the social factors influencing this phenomena. Like we have seen in other Durkheim's videos, his focus is more on the society, the social structure, as opposed to the individual. So he introduced a sociological approach to understand suicide, to analyze suicide, distinguishing it from psychological or individualistic perspectives. So the key concepts that we are going to focus on under the theory of suicide is social integration and social regulation. So first, social integration. This refers to the strength of ties that bind individuals to the social groups such as family, community, society at large. According to Durkheim, a balanced level of integration is crucial for individual well-being. Second is social regulation. This pertains to the norms, rules, and expectations that society imposes on individuals. Adequate regulation helps individuals align their aspirations and behavior with societal expectations. So there are, based on the level of integration and level of regulation, there are four types of suicides according to Durkheim. One is the egoistic suicide, in which there is low social integration. Then the second is the altruistic suicide, which happens because of high social integration. And then there is the third, anomic suicide, which happens because of low social regulation. Now, what anomy is has been discussed in my Durkheim's video on division of labor. And the fourth type of suicide is fatalistic suicide, which is caused by high social regulation. So first, let's look at the egoistic suicide. It is the cause is low social integration, and it occurs when individuals feel detached from society. This type of suicide is prevalent in societies where individualism is high and social bonds are weak, leading to feelings of isolation and meaninglessness. Then we have the second type, that is the altruistic suicide. The cause of altruistic suicide is high social integration. It happens when individuals are excessively integrated to the into their social group, to the extent that they may sacrifice their own lives, that they are integrated to the level that they can sacrifice themselves for the group's benefit. Examples include soldiers who die for their country, or members of cults who commit suicide for their beliefs. In fact, the old practice of sati can also be seen as an altruistic suicide. Then we have the third type, which is the anomic suicide. Now, anomic suicide, the cause of it is low social regulation. It results from a sudden breakdown of social equilibrium, such as economic crisis or rapid societal changes. When societal norms are disrupted, individuals may experience normlessness or anomy, leading to feelings of purposelessness and despair. The fourth is fatalistic suicide. It is caused by high social regulation, and it arises when individuals are subjected to oppressive regulations and excessive control. When does fatalistic suicide happen? When there is oppressive regulation and there is excessive control, feeling that their futures are oppressively blocked and their passions violently choked by oppressive discipline. This type is less common and was exemplified by Durkheim with cases like slaves taking their own lives. So, what are the implications of Durkheim's theory? Durkheim's theory highlights the importance of social factors in understanding suicide. By linking suicide rates to the structure and dynamic of society, he demonstrated that suicide is not merely an individual act, but it is significantly influenced by social conditions. So it's not completely an individual act, but there is a lot of social factors, social conditions working behind a suicide. So that's what Durkheim's theory is trying to demonstrate. Now, what are the key criticisms of Durkheim's theory of suicide? Now, Atkinson criticized Durkheim's approach for ignoring the processes by which deaths are classified as suicides. He argued that the role of coroners and the social context of death classification are crucial to understanding suicide statistics. Robert K. Merton extended Durkheim's work on anomy, but criticized him for not fully exploring the ways in which societal structures create strain and pressure that lead to deviant behavior, including suicide. So what Durkheim is doing is basically saying that high individualism is leading to suicide, and people who are socially integrated are less susceptible to committing suicide. But he doesn't account for how societal structures themselves could create strain and could create pressure that could lead to such deviant behavior. Then we have cultural and temporal specificity. Postmodern and cultural sociologists. Now, Durkheim's theory is criticized by them for being too specific to the cultural and historical context of the 19th century Europe. Modern critics argue that his theory may not be universally applicable, as it does not account for cultural variations in the meaning and practices surrounding suicide. So it could also be seen as, a bit Eurocentric. So then we have static view of society as another critique. So conflict theorists criticize Durkheim for having a static and consensus-oriented view of society. They argue that he ignores the role of power, inequality, and social conflict in influencing suicide rates, and that his theory does not consider how social change and dynamics impact suicidal behavior. So a few other criticisms are that there is limited scope of social integration. Now, Durkheim's concept of social integration is seen as overly simplistic. It's a very simplistic theory. Critics suggest that the nature and quality of social relationships are more important than mere integration, and that his theory does not differentiate between supportive and oppressive social ties. Overemphasis on social factors. Critics argue that Durkheim's focus on social integration, regulation, overlooks the individual psychological factors. Psychologists and individual-oriented sociologists believe that mental health issues, personal experiences, and psychological conditions are critical in understanding suicide, and Durkheim's model does not adequately address these individual aspects. So we see how Durkheim has formulated his theory of suicide, and I hope this video was helpful in revising, in learning a few new criticisms. And thank you for watching. If you've watched till here, please do subscribe. And yeah, thank you.